In today's video, I have 12 content creators on the channel talking about a few different things heading into round 3 of the 2022 AFL Supercoach season. Hope you enjoy.
Hi guys, I'm Clarky from Jock Reynolds.
I'm Leckdog.
That's Talks Footy.
I'm Spills.
I'm Shorty.
Hey, this is Ben from Supercoach Insider.
It's Damo from Jock Reynolds.
This is Tom from Supercoach Mates.
Hey, I'm Jonas from Supercoach Mates.
My name is Azza and I'm from Jock Reynolds and a Supercoach veteran from Melbourne.
G'day guys, Chris Story here, AFL draft expert. I'm Big JD and you're joining me on the Centre Bounce.
Yeah, so my first thoughts are to my underperforming primos. I managed to nail the rookie selection, thankfully, right before the price rise. So I'm pretty happy with how they're sitting. So currently I'm looking at guys like Whitfield, who's been underperforming, and even Jordan Ridley, who didn't look to have a favorable role. Defensive primos are really sort of scaring me at the moment, especially having Hewitt and seeing guys like Bowie step up to take the place of guys like Christian Salem, who's out for 8 weeks. So there's a lot of opportunity there, and I want to make sure that I nail those selections coming into round 3.
I've got a forced change in my team heading into the price rises. I had Taron Thomas as a breakout in the forward line, and he's obviously gone down injured, probably underperformed in the first 2 games anyway. So I'll be looking to either move him to one of the myriad of 200k players we have, or my boy Paddy Cripps. Is it real? I don't know, but I might have to bring him in and find out.
I'll be getting rid of some of the higher priced rookie types that haven't quite worked out. So I have McGovern over Sherry. I have Chapman over Bowie. So I'll definitely be correcting those. And with Machito Owen seemingly out of the Saints 22, I'll probably be bringing in Dylan Stevens as well. And all 3 of those boys are going to rack up the coin for me this week. So as much as it sucks, maybe not having as many keepers as I would like at this time of year, I need to get the rookie correction right.
Definitely getting Patrick Cripps in. I think he's a genuine must-have this year. And before his price change, you just got to jump on.
At the moment, I'm probably discussing and thinking about Gawn and Whitfield, 2 premiums that I had a fair bit of faith in at the start of the year. But at the moment, George Hewitt's looming pretty large, and it's midweek, and I'm just unsure which way I'm going to go with Gawn, whether I take it down to a Timmy English or a Witts, or I still got to find a way for Jack Hayes to get into that side. So they're probably my main considerations at the moment, mate.
Basically, I'm looking at maximizing the cash generation from rookies. So the first thing I'm looking at are the rookies that I don't have. I don't have Hayes. I don't have Stevens. So I'm looking at those couple of guys there as well. And I'm also looking for opportunities to sideways or optimize the mid prices that have failed. So for me, I have McGovern, which is a pretty simple discussion. Then McGovern possibly into a Bowie and actually using a bit of DPP swing. So it's about really trying to maximize, now that you have 2 rounds of data, trying to see where you've gone wrong, how you can quickly change your team and make it stronger.
I'm going to make sure that I've got the right rookies in my team before round 3. And then I'll be looking at getting in George Hewitt. I don't know why I didn't start him. He's started the season like a house on fire.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's one that obviously, like, we tell our listeners to be pretty careful with, because you don't want to change your whole structure that you've been doing all preseason just to fit in X, Y, Z players. I think for me, it's the players that would not surprise me, but couldn't get in initially with the structure. So Cripps and Heaney, for example, are 2 prime candidates. So it's getting those guys in, but I'm not sacrificing my overall structure, I think, for those guys. I think it's just getting in the must players that are guaranteed to rise in price, that once they've given that initial price rise, you're kind of struggling to bring them in after that because they've hit over 500k. The other option that I've obviously tinkered with is getting rid of underperforming primos. So like obviously Gawn and Whitfield have been doing pretty terribly for the first 2 rounds. But as you know, we told our listeners on our podcast, it's only a 2-game sample size so far. It's probably not the greatest 2-game sample size we've seen, but you've got to keep in mind that it's a 22-game season. It's not even maybe if they were scoring sub hundreds for 6 games in a row, you'd be concerned. But yeah, getting in the getting the players to have those big cash rises are pretty important, I think, for me at the moment.
I think the main thing I'm looking at doing is trying to find a few more value-oriented players. I've got some players in there, such as Whitfield and stuff, who at their price are a bit overpriced because of the scores they're putting up. So I'm looking at getting in, say, for example, Cripps and Bowie, and even maybe a Luke Jackson or a Heaney, who present good value for money.
For me, it's purely corrective trades that I'll be focusing on, especially focusing on players that offer the fastest cash generation. Heath Chapman to Jake Bowie is one of those trades that I'm definitely looking at. Unfortunately, Chapman was a bit of a gambit that didn't work out, and Bowie has obviously started the season on absolute fire and looks to really have a very secure role in Melbourne's defence, and a Supercoach friendly one at that. I'm also looking at ways to bring in other players like Tristan Xerri, Josh Rochelle, Luke McDonald, Dylan Stevens, George Hewitt, all of whom are wish to project to rise over $100,000 over the next 3 rounds, which is just absolutely incredible. If there was ever really a time to be using that first prized trade boost, this might be the round.
So luckily for me, I'm in a very fortunate position where I've got my rookies right and I've got my mid prices right. So at this point in time, I'm not looking at making any changes. So currently no trades made in any of the rounds.
There is so many things that I want to change, but so few trades and even fewer dollars to spend. But the big thing for me is moving on either Ridley or Whitfield down back and then McGovern up front. I don't think McGovern is a must move by any means, but he is one that can be expensed to get in some of the good mid prices that I missed in Cripps. And then, I think Whitfield's going to be the one that goes for Hewitt, who was also another mid price I was really hot on, but chickened out of last minute and regretting that very heavily as of right now.
The first thing I think that you need to make sure of is that you've got sufficient cash generation for the weeks going forward. If you have managed to miss a rookie that has some decent job security, so if you didn't pick Paddy McCartan for some reason, or even, you're missing a Horn Francis or a Ward because you decided to spend the money elsewhere, making sure that you have those guys who are going to be bringing in the money over the next 4 weeks is really important. Guys like Will Brodie as well sit on that list. The next thing that you'd be wanting to do is to make sure that you are happy with your premiums that you've selected. If you don't have any rookie trouble, you want to make sure that your guys who are going to top score for you are going to be serious vice captain and serious captain options, I think is a sign of a good premium. So making sure that you have those guys who can score 100 plus each week is really important.
If I was to give advice to someone looking to make some changes to their side this week, it would be maximize your cash generation. We're in probably a little bit of a strange one in 2022 where the normal glutton of very cheap rookies, which are a must when you're building your team's value throughout the year, are not available to us. So there's a lot of 200K guys and a lot of 400K guys we've got to consider. So if you have holes on the bench, you probably need to find a way to downgrade an underperforming primo to upgrade a couple of bench rookies to these 200K players. I'm talking about your Will Brodies, your Tristan Xerris, those type of players, because it looks like that's where the cash is going to be. So high break even, bad. Low break even, good.
Apart from the clear my team button, because every decision it seems like I've made early has been the wrong one. But this is purely rookie correction week, in my opinion. If you think there are must-haves that you can get into your team, absolutely should. But if you're trading out premiums to get in other premiums, that's still a form of sideways trading. So unless you're ditching one keeper and trading in two, just fix your rookies, let the money come in, and then make good, honest decisions in the rounds to come. This isn't panic stations yet. This is get the money in and go from there.
Probably not chasing points. For example, people thinking about trading in Isaac Heaney this week, but you've already missed out on a couple of absolutely cracking scores. What's to say he's going to score that next week? So yeah, probably chasing points is a big one.
Yeah, I think the main thing you got to think about is don't miss a rookie option that is going to make you some significant cash. So, of course, you want to make sure that you've got premiums that are firing, fully fit, all that type of thing. But correcting any rookies that you may have got wrong, or guys that are really going to make a lot of cash. I think that's the most important thing, because if you don't have those before the prices move, come round 6 or 7, you'll be really struggling to find that coin that you want to make some upgrades. So get those cash cows into your side.
Don't throw the baby out of the bathwater. Have a little bit of patience. It's a 22-round season. I threw out Josh Kelly last year after he was playing forward. Next minute, he's killing it in the midfield. So a little bit of patience. I know it's easy. You got all these trades each week. You got this trade boost. Someone in my local league's already burnt through 5 trades, including this week. It's absolutely crazy. Now, if you have Steele, back him in. He had a lot of tackles, which kind of helped supplement his score this week. Whitfield is probably the biggest one, highly owned. People are looking to get him out of their side. So I'd say have a little bit of patience. If you have a mid-price, a heavy team, and there's someone that's failed, then Bowie is your perfect guy. If you've gone guns and rookies, don't try and change your structure and throw everything out just to get in a mid-pricer. Don't go trading out a premium just to kind of get a Crips if it's going to completely offset your structure. So I'd say you went in with a plan. Don't change everything just after 2 rounds, but look for opportunities to improve.
The first thing that I would look at is make sure you have all the right rookies. You need to make sure that you're getting that cash generation in your team, because cash generation is going to be key. The next thing I would make sure is, you've got the players that are performing to your standards. So if you've got someone like a Max Gorn who's not performing well, you got to get him out. If you've got someone like a Jack Steele or a Lockie Whitfield that's not performing to your standard, you got to get them out.
It's a good question. It's one that I think the biggest thing is not to ruin your overall structure, as we harp back on to that. It's like, as I said, it's one of those things where you've got to be careful if you're trading underperforming primo. Obviously, there are exceptions to the rule, like people are trading Whitfield to Hall is a pretty popular trade this week, I believe so. Which obviously netting points and banking on the fact that, Hall's going to outscore Whitfield for the rest of the season. But you've got to also realise that you picked Whitfield for a reason. Obviously, he's not doing so well at the moment, and there might be underlying issues. But I think the biggest advice is don't go chasing points for the sake of chasing points. So, for example, I'll give you an example. So, Travis Boak, we mentioned in our podcast, obviously he's someone that might not be picked by a lot of people, but he's someone that fits the mold of chasing points. So he scored 149 and 156. They're probably going to be his best 2 games of the year, most likely, unless he goes in another 6-game crazy streak. And someone like him, you're bringing in hoping he's going to do the same thing for the next 6 rounds, which is realistically probably not going to happen. You're chasing 300 points that you're not going to get because you're bringing him after his first 2 good games. So it's one to keep in mind. Obviously, maybe someone like Heaney, for example, or Cripps, they're due to the role and probably passing the eye test a bit more. They're someone that you could see them scoring. Obviously, not constantly 140s. That's just impossible. But even then, it's like you are chasing points in some regards, but they're more prone to the higher scores compared to maybe someone like Boak, for example, if you're comparing those 2 players head to head. But yeah, biggest piece of advice is just to not chase points and ruin a structure that you worked hard over the preseason, if you did your research, to just bring in these players for the points they've scored in the first 2 rounds.
I think the main thing is have a deep look at the player you're trying to get in and see, are they either a keeper, meaning are they going to be top 6 or 8 in their line, or are they going to make 150K at the bare minimum? So, for example, with Cripps, I'm not entirely sure he'll be a keeper just based on his durability, but with the scores he's got in his break-even cycle, I think he should be able to reach at least 600K pretty quickly, and at worst case be sort of like a stepping stone to another primo mid.
So you want to ensure that any trades that you're wanting to make this early on are going to be worthwhile investments to your side. So corrective rookie trades or mid-price corrections, all of those types. In Supercoach, we talk a lot about cash generation being great for sides throughout the course of the season. By targeting players like Jake Bowie and Tristan Xerri, you could even have yourself nabbing a premium by round 6 with the help of a cash cow, which puts you ahead of the pack in the long term. I'm always a firm believer of targeting value and upgrading early. Furthermore, as hard as it is, you really want to try your best to remove emotion from any trade decisions. Rage trading and sideways trading, knowing premiums really isn't the smartest of decisions. Already having a look at the numbers tonight, I'm seeing 5,052 coaches trading Jack Steele out, which kind of saddens me given that he's become a known premium in Supercoach. Even in the last round, he had a game high 13 tackles against Fremantle and does have a very friendly Supercoach draw from here. Remember that it is a 23 round long season. It's a marathon and not a sprint.
I would be looking at those rookies and mid prices with particularly high break evens. So if you're missing a few of them, maybe it's a Nick Dacos as an example. Well, they're the guys you really need to be looking to bring in, particularly if there's players you're really looking to move out. They should be your primary targets.
So I think a lot of people get sucked into chasing some of the premiums or scores that have already gone. And while it is valuable to get in Cripps and Hewitt, like I am, if you've missed them, I think the even more important thing is securing that cash generation for the weeks ahead. That'll really set you up in a nice place. So as we start to go through upgrade season and can use trade boosts, you can get in the premiums and really fill out your team. So I would say prioritize the rookies and the cash gen that are going to secure your team in the rounds ahead. And only once that's kind of under lock and key, look at some of these more exotic options like Hewitt or Cripps.
As far as point of difference players, I think Aaron Hall and Andrew Brayshaw are quite underselected. And I think Brayshaw particularly has shown the last couple of weeks that he is integral to that core Fremantle unit. 2 scores of 150 plus is really nothing to sneeze at. Same thing with Aaron Hall, 2 tons. I know he's a guy that's 570, but if you're looking to go up for an underperforming premium, Aaron Hall would be someone that I'd be looking at because he looks like he's going to be doing that week in, week out. Another person who I think is Darcy Parish, who's currently in my side, may see a bit of a rise with Zach Barrett's 8-week injury and ankle surgery, which is unfortunate, but probably great time to pick up Darcy Parish, even though he is expensive, but he'll probably benefit from that. Point of difference players, it's okay to pick them up as you go. If you don't have Patrick Cripps now, get him in this week if that's what you need to do to make your points up to get your wins. However, if you want to plan to get him over the next, say, 4 weeks before he really hits his top value, you can look at getting him over the next couple of weeks and maybe cashing in on a few scores that you have that will run through the price cycles.
That I like as a bit of a pod, once again, not a must-have, but at $469,000, Jack Sinclair, sneaky little player in defence from St Kilda, only in 1% of teams, scored a 114 on the weekend, and I believe a 93 in round one. No, a 100 in round one. So he's averaging 107 for the year. I think he could be, low key, maybe a poor man's Jake Lloyd, maybe closer to a Jaden Short moving forward. So a couple of pods to consider that are a little cheaper than some of the underperforming premiums we already have.
So for those that don't have Tristan Sherry that might want to go down the pod path, Collingwood's Jack Ginnivan or Ginnivan, it's depending on the media outlet, is the different pronunciation. His break even is negative 66, so him and Sherry are pretty similar. He's got a role in Collingwood's best 22, and you never know when Callum Coleman-Jones might come in and take Sherry's spot, depending on the matchup, whereas Ginnivan is a best 22 player. So if you're looking for someone that's a little bit different, that is still going to get you coin, I think Ginnivan's the right place to go.
Yeah, I have a real pod here, and that man is Jake Bowie, someone that I really am tempted to downgrade Ridley for, so I can get rid of both Whitfield and Ridley at the same time, but no one seems to be talking about this bloke. Had 40 touches, 20-plus contested. The bloke's a genuine jet filling in Salem's role.
Yeah, pods are a tough thing to find these days, aren't they, mate? All I would say is if you're looking for a point of difference in the midfield, and I know a few people have lost a little bit of faith in a couple of our primos, Andy Brayshaw is lighting it up. Now, he was a guy that I liked at the start of the season, didn't have the guts to go with him. I reckon he was 4-5% of teams. Not sure where he's at now, but he's taken that next step like a lot of us thought. So I know the Dockers have a few mids still to come back in, but he looks to have taken the mantle as just an absolute jet inside that midfield of the Dockers.
Pods and required players. Interesting concept. There are certain people that I like and I think have appeal. Angus Brayshaw is one of them. No, Andrew Brayshaw. Geez, the two brothers from another mother. Brayshaw, Fremantle have a really soft draw. He's come out and he's gone bang, which I thought he would. The issue is that I always think he's going to get tagged at some point. So it's one of those kind of semi ones where I like him. And if you've got him, awesome, you're extremely happy. But he's someone that I would look at. Petrarca as well is definitely highly owned. Now, the biggest one is Aaron Hall. I hate Aaron Hall. Anyone that's listened to the podcast or me on streaming, hate him. Didn't get him last year. I was doubling down this year. Cannot stand him, but even I want him in my team. It's one of those head over heart matters where Aaron Hall, so low owned, probably going to be the number one defending player. So if you have 70K and Whitfield's not doing it for you, Aaron Hall, any matchup, any of your leagues, I think he is probably the one that is probably going to be a must-have, unfortunately. Heaney, he's not going to kick 88 goals for the year. He's kicked 8 goals here in the first 2 rounds. So Heaney could be a must-have, probably will be top 6. So I can see if you have someone else fail, like if you have a Zach Bailey from Brisbane failing, then yes, Heaney's your guy. So they're probably the ones there. I think Heaney has the potential there as well. But Aaron Hall, number one, hands down, has to be the number one defender. And I hate to say it.
I don't know if he's a point of difference after the weekend, but I'm surprised Andy Brayshaw wasn't in more teams. He's going to be that main midfield man for Freo this year, and 189 against St Kilda on the weekend. You got to get him in. He's going to be maintaining a high average for the whole year.
Yeah, I've got one. I wouldn't say necessarily required. Maybe Jonas can mention that in a bit more detail about required players. But one pod that I quite like the look of from St Kilda is Jack Sinclair. He's a 460K defender, and he's been moved into the midfield. He was moved into the second half of the Collingwood game and pretty much dominated in the midfield. He's got elite foot skills. If you believe anything of champion starters, elite players, he's our only listed elite player. So take of that what you will. But he's pretty much our most consistent player off halfback. He was the most improved. He's been that third mid all of the second half of that Collingwood game and basically all of the Freo game. He did, I think he just scored under 100 in that game and scored just over 100 in the first game. He's one that if he gets a consistent run at it in the midfield, and I'm hoping as a St Kilda supporter he stays in there because he just fits the bill quite well for that mid role, and we look quite exciting with him in there. But he's one, if you want to go really point of difference, I'd say it's not a bad option because I think even with the likes of Billings, Zach Jones and Hunter Clark coming back, I hopefully think that Sinclair might nail a spot in that midfield just because of the classiness he's got around the ball. So he's one that I definitely say if I had to pick one that's out there and potentially could end up being a top, 8 to 10 defender, that's definitely one that I'd choose.
I think the main point of difference I've got in mind at the moment is Luke Jackson. I think the forward ruck eligibility is quite tempting, and he showed on the weekend that he can seriously pump out some good scores. As for required players, I think most people have looked at bringing in the ones that I've considered, but if you don't have them, I think Sherry and potentially Brody are the two that in the forward line at their price seem to be pretty great options.
It's a tough one. I don't have a true pod per se. I've always felt that selecting a pod or a point of difference in the hope of success is quite a flawed strategy. Those players that are popular, like Jack McRae, Jack Steele, Clayton Oliver, Josh Dunkley, Brodie Grundy, even the new ones, Josh Dacos, Jason Horne-Francis, they are popular for a reason. If you're betting against them, really only increases your chance of failure. Of course, that being said, the player with the lowest ownership in my side is Aaron Hall. Being a North fan, just had to. Currently sitting at 4.3% ownership. I didn't really see him as a pod. It's just a fluke and a player that people overlooked at the time because of his hamstring injury.
I wouldn't say necessarily any of them are sleepers, but George Hewitt would certainly be one everyone would need. And then really it's just, again, those rookies that have those very high break evens that people should really be looking to bring in. Possible points of difference. maybe Zach Butters. I haven't really checked any of the ownership stats, but really, again, you want to bring in those guys that have those high break evens that have scored pretty well to open the season.
Big J, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't look at ownership percentage very much, so I couldn't tell you in my team who and who isn't a pod. One that I think was underselected by a lot of people was Tristan Cherry, a man you'd be very familiar with, being a big North Nuffy. He is 208K, has gone, I think, 99.5 average over the first two. Looks like he's going to be the number one ruck for North for the foreseeable future, which means round 6 DPP, and that is someone I would be getting into my team if I didn't already have him. Ticks the boxes not only for points on field, but also for cash generation. And if you have someone like McGovern, he would be an easy side swap too.